Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're here for our review show and we're looking back at Armagh's 3-point loss to Kerry at the weekend. As always, this podcast is brought to you in association with McKeever Teamwear, proud suppliers of all Armagh GA merchandise. Aaron Kiernan's back on the podcast today and he's going to help me discuss all the talking points from the weekend and, as I say, Armagh's 3-point loss to Kerry. Aaron, thanks for coming on, and I suppose to start, we'll just start at the beginning of the game. There was a big crowd at this, and that was expected with Kerry coming to town, and I think the majority of the fans were all Armagh based. There was a real championship feel to this. I suppose the weather played its part as well, with the sun out. Big game, the athletic ground's packed. It was just a good feeling before the game.
It was class. I suppose even waking up yesterday morning knowing you were going to have good weather and that you had Kerry coming to town, and I think it's just even whenever Armagh were going well throughout the whole noughties, I don't remember them playing Kerry and Armagh at any stage. I remember them playing in Tralee at one stage, and then I know in 2011 it was Tralee, 2012 was Armagh. But we've only had them once in Armagh in 30 odd years. So it just, I suppose, the way they're going and the amount of household names that they're gathering at the moment, it just was brilliant for us to have them in the county. And just to see the excitement with everyone, it was brilliant. And to have a crowd like they had, you could understand the Tyrone game. They were all Ireland champions, the local rivalry, their next door neighbours. And they would bring a good following. But if there was 1,000 Kerry ones there, that was the height of it. But it just goes to show you the excitement that there is and the following that's growing for this Armagh team. So that's brilliant to see, because the numbers don't play, and it's a long time since we've seen as many people. Like there had to be easily 15,000 at that game yesterday, it's unbelievable. Great to see.
And we're talking about the weather, and the sun was shining, but it wasn't a summer's day either. When you were on the field, there was a big wind favouring Kerry in the first half, and just on it, Aaron, it looked difficult to play into. I know we'll touch on Armagh's first half performance, and obviously they faced the stiff breeze in the first half, but even Kerry seemed to struggle when they had the wind at their backs. Some of their shot selection seemed okay, but then it would just tail off. So it was difficult weather conditions, although the sun was shining.
It was, yeah. I suppose the underfoot conditions were good, which is a big plus compared to what we've had over the past number of weeks. But the wind, it is, I don't know, there's something with the letter grounds even going down into the bottom goals. It does always seem to tail off to where the sort of advertising board is or the flags are. And if you notice, a lot of the Kerry wides pulled to that side. So I suppose it's an advantage in terms of that it gives you the opportunity to maybe kick a bit more in open play. But in terms of shooting, it wasn't the sort of wind where you could throw a ball up from 50 metres out and let the wind take it. It probably was just a wee bit too strong to let that happen. And it probably did affect the game a bit in terms of there was plenty of pressure in boys as they were shooting, but you would expect a wee bit more from the calibre of forwards that there was in both teams, that they looked like maybe they just didn't execute properly or snatched at them a wee bit quicker than they would have liked. But we'll put a bit down to weather conditions, and then obviously we'll put a bit down to the pressure that was on players as they were getting their shots off.
And we'll start with the first half as well then, Armagh. A poor first half, I think that's fair to say, given their performances so far in the league. It was disappointing, their first half performance, although they got a good start with the first point here in Kelly. I think they went 28 minutes without getting their second points, or 26 minutes or something. Kelly got the second one as well, but Kerry were 7-1 up by that stage, and Armagh just they lacked ideas going forward, and they didn't seem to have an obvious plan in place going forward. I know we've accounted for the weather conditions, but I suppose we can credit Kerry's defensive system as well, and Paddy Tolly's in with them this year, so you expected them to be defensively sound.
Yeah, like first off, you probably have to give Kerry plenty of credit in terms of it is an area that was clearly an issue for them this past number of years, and it seems to be a clear focus. That had come from Jack O'Connor, because he's a fairly attritional manager. He wears his heart on the sleeve. He doesn't shy away from his like of a sort of physical, robust nature in his team. Paddy Tally adding tweaks into it in terms of, I suppose, just a proper defensive shape. not conceding goals, always having a +1 there. You can definitely see a big improvement in them. But I know we spoke just a wee bit off air. For me, I think we played into their hands a wee bit at times in terms of I didn't feel we had enough of a forward shape to mix our game up. So therefore, like Kerry are willing to track you all over the field now. They're willing to get numbers back and hunt in packs. So by us not having enough of a forward shape, it meant that all we really had was a running game to get us up. And that meant that every time we got the ball, like how many times you see someone trying to get a shot off and then they were under pressure, having to turn back. Next man was trying to get a shot off. And it was just the same thing happening over and over again. And then just on top of that, some of the long ball deliveries that we did play inside, we were kicking into the wind, but for me, we were just kicking from too far out, which meant that it was sort of easy enough to read in terms of the defenders. And all Jason Foley had to do on Rain was break the ball, and Tig Morley was the first person in to pick it up. Where I think the difference in Kerry, and particularly just the goal, because the goal will ultimately, well, to be fair, Kerry were a better team all day. The goal was the difference in the end, but they worked the ball right to the 45. And like we had plenty of men back, but Clifford made a lovely run as if he's heading towards the shed side, double back, got the ball, a brilliant pass from Stephen O'Brien into his chest and stuck it away. But it was much closer, you know, it was an easier pass for him to make. Now, granted, he has to execute it and he has to take people out. It was a super pass. The movement inside was good, but the point was by leading one way and cutting back, you know, we couldn't cut it out even though we had enough numbers there. Where for me, I thought we were just trying, whenever we did try to kick in the first half, we tried to kick from too far out. It held in the wind. We didn't have enough support players there. And it's probably just a wee bit of a pattern from our games. Like I was trying to look at all the games so far in terms of what we're scoring and what we're conceding. And defensively, we're still very solid. Like we had Kerry in town there. Yes, the granted Clifford didn't start, Sean O'Shea didn't play. We kept them to 113. Like you'd like to think if we're keeping them to 113 that we're in with a chance, you know, of clipping them. But from the first two games against Dublin and Tyrone, it looks to me like our opposition are really studying us, doing huge amount of video work and video analysis on us, and it's affecting our score ratio. We're still, like if you go through all our games, Dublin, we conceded, it was 14 scores against us, 14 scores against us, Tyrone, 10 Monaghan, 15 Mayo, 10 Kildare, and 14 scores again yesterday. The most we have conceded, adding all that up, is 16 points, which is fairly good going for Division 1 and the bringing in the championship. But unfortunately, our own scores and what we're getting are dropping off. Like we've gone from scoring 21 points down to 20 to 10, 13, 15, 13. So defensively, we're still very solid, and you know, we're making life really difficult. But we just seem like other teams have copped on to us a bit, and we're not getting the scores or the returns from us that we would expect given the quality we have. But it's something that can be fixed, because obviously we have a good management team in place there who are very forward thinking and very modern in their approach to the game, and then we have the quality to change it. So I would say it's definitely going to be a focal point for the players and management over the next few weeks. And for me, I'd take it happening now. Once we learn from it, because we've got what we wanted to get out of the league. Granted, we would have liked to have got to a league final, you know, after Mayo gives the lifeline really on Saturday night. But I suppose all focus now will turn to championship and making sure that we're a better version of ourselves for Donegal.
I suppose we're missing a few key personnel up there as well. I know Oisín O'Neill, he's still injured. Conor Turbot as well, Aidan Nugent. So while they have work to do up on that forward line, and I suppose it's different than we've had in recent years. We had a great forward line but didn't get the defence right. Now we have the defence right, we'll have to work on the forward line, but there's still hope there. Like they've plenty of time to work on it before the championship, and then hopefully a few of these big names coming back as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Like for me, like you learn more in defeat. You always do. And I'll take these learnings now because I think they will stand to us. I'd be worried if I thought, you know, we were totally blinkered in terms of our management setup or the players, and that we couldn't see any other way. Like, I know right well they'll have a debrief already at this stage, and they'll look at all options of how we can improve. And we have the playing personnel then that can go and execute and make those tweaks to make sure that we are starting to crank up. Like, everyone's target once you come championship to win the big games against the top teams, you need to be hitting over 20 scores. You know, the two best performances we had this year was your Dublin and your Tyrone games, and we had 20 and 21 points that we got in both those games, and we have dropped off that. But that's the same. Like, I'll take that as a compliment, because our opposition are really honing in on us. But at the same token, you know, we can't control what they want to do and how they want to study us. But it's clear to me then that we have work to do, you know, in terms of maybe tweaking our game slightly to make sure that we're getting back to rack up the scores that we need to go and start beating teams, to get to this Ulster final, to win this Ulster Championship and progress the way we all want to see this team, and the way that team themselves, they want to be going to get to an Ulster final. They want to beat Donegal and Ballybofey. They have their own targets and goals to get to. So putting scores on the board, putting more scores on the board is obviously a key area that we need to find improvement on. But I do firmly believe that we will.
And Aaron, just after the first half, heading at halftime, we were worried about Armagh. Like, they weren't playing well. Clifford still had to come on and did come on, and we'll talk more about him shortly. But I suppose the black card to Jack Savage just before halftime, it just offered Armagh a wee lifeline at the start of the second half. They were coming out, playing with the breeze. They'd next them on for 10 minutes. But at halftime, we had just a wee bit worried about how everything was going.
I probably was more earlier on in the half, because I know they kept chipping away and ended up, they kicked 7 points, you know, in a row. But early on, even before we got our first point, they were a bit in control. They kicked a couple of uncharacteristic wides. I felt as the game wore on, you know, we were starting to control a wee bit more the game, that it wasn't all being played on their terms. And I would have thought management used half-time wisely, and that's why they would have got Stupi on, because they knew straight away, let's go for this. We have an extra man, get him on the ball as much as possible, get a few scores off. And to be fair, even just his 1 point where he went down along the shed side, cut in, I think it gave everybody a lift, both players and supporters. But like, if we're being brutally honest, we probably just never really got to the pitch of it throughout, I don't think. I don't know whether we give them maybe a wee bit too much respect. I suppose if you look at the physicality we brought to Tyrone and Dublin games, granted now there were some big hits on both sides yesterday, but I just felt we probably didn't boss or try to bully Kerry as much as what we had done in those games earlier in the year. So that might be something. It might have been a subconscious thing where we maybe stood off them slightly. But it felt nearly throughout. I wasn't worried that I thought Kerry was going to completely run away with us. I knew we'd always get a public pass, but I just never felt really at any stage that we were really, really in top and control. Women battles all over the field. And at one stage, like, the gap was closing, that we were getting an 83, and I sort of was nearly a wee bit surprised that we were that close. And like I said, there was a bit of buzz and a bit of atmosphere as we closed in later on. But I don't think ultimately we could have too many complaints that the better team on the day won.
I think just during that purple patch on, we missed a few crucial scores. Now Grimley missed one, Soupy missed another, and then the goal chance as well. Jason Duffy had a chance, and I suppose it was a difficult angle for Jason Duffy when you're coming straight in at the goals. There's defenders around him, and he just hit it straight at the keeper. And I think when he watches it back, he'll see Soupy on his left-hand side. And he did sort of faint at the start of the move, but I don't know, maybe it's okay saying from the stand, maybe there wasn't the gap there to pass it through to Soupy, but that was the ball, and Soupy coming in at an angle was obviously a better goal chance. But during that purple patch, Armagh, they pressed up on the kickouts. They did get some success, a couple of points, but just they missed too many chances during that sort of purple patch to really stand a chance of winning the game.
Yeah. No, to be fair, Kerry missed a few of those simple ones in front of goals that they tailed off. But yeah, you're right. At that stage, like, we were getting a good press on their kickouts, and we got definitely 2 super turnovers where we had 2 or 3 men surrounded them, and they just literally were dropped to the ground, couldn't get the ball away. And that's a great momentum lift for us. But yeah, the fact that You were chasing them the whole game. We couldn't really afford to be missing any chances. It was all right for them to be kicking wides in the first half whenever they were in the lead and they were sort of pulling away from us. But as you're making that comeback, you need to make all your opportunities stick. Because they're a momentum killer whenever they don't go over, both on the field and off it. But to be fair, like, there was no drop in the heads really from our boys. You know, we were hunting, we were trying to go after, we were trying to make things happen. At times they just didn't. Jason's goal chance, to be fair, like, he created it out of nothing. Like, his sort of show and go and the pace he used to burst through. I wouldn't have had really an issue with him having a goal, because he had created a goal opportunity out of nothing. I think this was just the big thing is, I'm far from being a goal scorer myself, but the one thing is, you're always told, like, keep it low, make the goalkeeper work. And he probably could have took another play out of it to just steady himself up a wee bit more and get himself a bit closer, that he could have showed a wee bit more precision in what he was doing. It created a bit of pandemonium in the square in terms of it went, hey, Shane Rain couldn't get a clean catch on it, and a broken front. But it was at a perfect height from him, and unfortunately we just didn't have the first man in to get a rebound and put it into the net. But yeah, like, had Dada went in, the pressure was very much in Kerry, and we were in the ascendancy at that stage. But really, other than that, we didn't carve them open, or we didn't create the same simple opportunities to get a goal, or even the points we were getting. We were working way harder for them than what even the likes of Clifford, whenever he came on in the second half. Granted, now he's just an outstanding footballer and super creating space, but where he was receiving the ball and his opportunity of shooting was much easier than what we were able to create ourselves.
And we'll spend a few minutes on Clifford, because I know when the team was announced on Friday, a lot of people would have been disappointed that it was supposed to be, wasn't going to be playing. Before the game, it was announced he was number 10, but he wasn't starting. And then eventually, when he did come on, you were nearly regretting hoping you would see him, because Armagh were behind at that stage. So he was electrifying, Aaron. He was class. Like, he was brilliant. The goal he scored, I suppose we'll mention Ethan Rafferty. He was just unfortunate. He slipped at the wrong time, and it sort of gave Clifford, who probably didn't get the best connection on the ball, but it was an easy goal at the end of the day. But his point over the far side, in front of the stand, where he dummied, I think it was Aidan Falker, bounced dummy, went on the right foot, bounced it and turned on his left and put it over the bar. He's quality, isn't he? And it was great to see him in the flesh.
Well, I suppose as Armagh people and us wanting to win, we probably shouldn't be saying it, but yeah, realistically, like, you know, it was unbelievable to have him in Armagh. There's been so much talk and hype about him this few years, and to have him in your own backyard, it was brilliant. And I think everyone enjoyed seeing him there, probably other than the boys who were coming up against him on the field. But that one in particular, I was directly behind the goals where the ball nearly landed, and like, to be fair to Aidan, he's so good off either foot, anywhere inside sort of 40 meters. Like, you can't stand off him. So Aidan was being as tight as he could. Like, for all it looked like he was going to swing off his right foot, and Aidan went in. But it was the speed of his bounce from his right hand on into bounce into the left hand, and how quickly he got his shot away. You know, didn't have a huge angle to work with. You would expect someone of his class to kick it over, but it was just his movement, his balance, and the speed that he could change from right hand to left hand, get the shot off. Like, it was super to see. And to be fair to him, there wasn't really anything else he was as close as he could beat him. He was committing off his right foot to make sure he got a block in if he could. And it was just the speed of his change of movement that it went over the bar. He kicked a few wides himself, too, simple enough ones that you would have expected. So it does show that he's human, and I think, as Rose, in terms of reflecting of chances that some of our own boys missed, it was the same for both teams. Ultimately, really, whenever it come down to it, yes, they were the better team, but the goal was the difference then on the day.
Yeah, he was definitely the difference with his goal at the end. And Aaron, did I see you running down after the game once the final whistle went? There's a pitch invasion, and per David and a few of the Armagh boys as well were surrounded straight away.
There were, yeah. I had my two wee boys with me, and it was Ryan O'Neill, David Clifford, and Sean O'Shea, to their disgust that he wasn't there. That's all they wanted to see. But like it was class. It was unbelievable. I suppose now as someone who's still obviously a fan, but as a parent, just to see hundreds and hundreds of kids running onto the field, and then more importantly, the players giving them their time. I know it got to the stage, particularly probably with Rian and David Clifford, where you just had to get it off, because they'd probably still be standing there. But isn't it great to see? And I suppose we all look to professional sports all over the world, and you just don't see that interaction between supporters and players. And for me, it was class. Like, it was just the swarm. It was just the way the game finished up, where everyone was at the bottom end of the field. You could just see the gates open and everyone started running down. So yeah, like in terms of what that'll do for young boys in Armagh, young boys and girls in Armagh, the enthusiasm for the game, and for them, they've the opportunity to all go back to their schools today, that they've met David Clifford, or they've met all the Armagh boys and had the pictures taken. It's brilliant. That's really ultimately what it's all about.
I think it's great from both sets of teams, and particularly, I suppose, Armagh, after being beat, the last thing they want to do is stand out in the field for the next 20 minutes, half an hour. But none of the players left early. They all stood out and all got their autographs and their photos taken. So it's great from Armagh and from Kerry, obviously, too, but maybe it's a bit easier to do it when you're winning. But from the Armagh boys to do that for their fans and for the youngsters that were on the field.
Yeah, like ultimately, like the ways they're standing and they're smiling, but deep down they know that they didn't perform, and even at that, it probably was an opportunity missed. But they did what was right. They did what had to be done, and ultimately, you look at the bigger picture. You had 15,000 people there. You had so many young people, young and old, looking pictures with them. But as disappointed as they would have been, yeah, you would have to say that they did the right thing, and they gave their time to everybody, which was great to see. But it's not, you wouldn't expect anything less from them, to be honest with you.
And Aaron, I'll let you go after this. Or there's still a slight chance they can reach the league final. I think if they have to win this weekend, I'd hope that Mayo don't win. I think that's the way it's going to pan out. What's the target at this stage? Like, Armagh playing Donegal, do you show your hand this weekend and go all out and try to win the league, or try to get to the league final, even though it's not all in your hands? You need Mayo to lose. Or do you go, right, okay, we'll try a few things out here, we'll see, and we'll not show our hand, we'll wait for the championship game in, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks' time then?
Yeah, it's a difficult one for me, because had we have won yesterday, I would be all about, doing all we can to get to a league final. It just become, I'm always go out and win and get momentum and keep winning habits going. It's a more difficult one. It's always hard to beat a team and lift yourself to beat them a couple of weeks later, because even though it's a league game, like there's huge amount riding on it for Donegal, but they really need to win to keep their Division 1 status within their own hands. For ourselves, have we maybe a few boys that might have been carrying a few knocks or niggles, a few boys who have been out this past few weeks that could do with getting a bit of game time. I would think we'd probably see not huge changes, but I do think you'll see some boys getting opportunities this weekend that had we really needed to, if we could guarantee our own place in a Division 1 final, I think we would still be going full strength. So I do think that we will see changes. I'm not really that bothered or concerned about this game now, to be honest with you. Donegal need to win and let them have it. Whatever happens this weekend, it's, for me, my full attention at this stage. And what's most important, that I would be, as far as I'm concerned, would be championship and be ready for them. The whole talk for months was this, Ballybuffet and you can't get wins, and up there, Monaghan put that to bed a couple of weeks ago. I don't think Donegal are going great at the moment, but do we need to go and beat them this weekend? Is it be all and end all? No, not really. We're now getting into championship mode at this stage, and it's getting everybody on the field, getting everyone as fit and as fresh as we possibly can now, because we've had 2 good league campaigns now. We're guaranteed Division 1 next year, and still playing against the top teams. But I think it's time we started to focus the championship and starting to get our focus on getting to an Ulster final and becoming Ulster champions again. And I think that time's closing in very quickly.
Yeah, definitely, Aaron. It's championship at this stage is all that matters now that the Division 1's secured. So we'll be back on Thursday with another podcast. We'll be previewing the Armagh and Donegal game coming up this weekend. And just before we finish, congratulations to the Armagh hurlers. They reached the league semi-final and they'll meet Roscommon this weekend. And also to the ladies, they beat Laois at the weekend and then meet Kerry now in the Division 2 league final. So we'll be back on Thursday and we'll be covering all that once again. Aaron, thank you for your time, and we'll hopefully speak to you next Monday again.
No problem, Sean.